It is a widely agreed upon fact amongst the United League that Terrans are a unique and unruly species. For proof of that, we need only look at their favourite sports: asteroid jousting and slingshot racing. Both are profusely dangerous and require skill beyond the average United League citizen, or indeed the average human. However, humans continue to compete in both, using remote-controlled ships to practice, though the real competitions are in person. Annoyingly for some, the effects of Terran culture and society can be seen slowly creeping into the cultures of some of the newer members on the galactic stage. The professor paused his lecture and looked around. His students, a diverse group made of most species in the United League, were staring at him intently. He hadn't ever seen them this engaged before. "But," he said, "I'm not here to tell you about Terrans and their madness, or their pastimes. I'm here to talk about what sets them apart from us: Sol's isolation. While life on Earth was still in its infancy, a freak collision destroyed the Sol jump gate, preventing the United Leagues from contacting humanity. Without the intervention of the UL, the Terrans had to learn the lessons of the Great Filters on their own. They very nearly wiped themselves out in what they call the Third World War, and similarly almost polluted their own world past the point of no return. Somehow, despite the odds stacked against them, the Terrans survived and flourished. First came the colonists on the fourth planet of Sol, then more on the moons of the fifth, and then survey vessels found the wreckage of the jump gate." He paused and brought up a picture of a severely destroyed jump gate on his visual aid. Despite the damage, the general shape was still recognizable, a ring from which several spires projected out, other than the direction you would enter the gate from. The Terrans touched the gate for almost a decade before they made a working prototype, but they hadn't built a replacement gate. Instead, they had built what they call a rip drive. I'm sure several of you have heard about Terran FDR before, so allow me to quickly dispel the more popular myths. No, Terrans don't enter Hell to travel faster than light, nor does a rip drive hasten the inevitable heat death of the universe. Finally, there is no evidence that a Terran ship has ever gone to visit the Milky Way's galactic neighbours. With that out of the way, the Terran rip drive is very different to the United League jump gates, and has several pros, and of course cons when compared. When a ship enters a jump gate, they instantly exit the partnered gate without time lost. Comparatively, a rip drive trip will take time in hours that can be calculated as... He turned and wrote out a formula on the visual aid. The power of 8 root of the distance in meters with the speed of light in meters per second, or c/s to the power of the 8th, where s is displacement in meters, and c is the speed of light in meters per second. Now, some of the more mathematically gifted members of the class might have noticed, according to this formula, it would take a little over 10 hours to cover the distance between Sol and the nearest star to Sol, Proxima Centauri, which is true. However, the rip drive can target any place outside a gravitational well. Assuming a Terran ship was to travel to the edge of the galaxy, and attempt to travel to the opposite side of the galaxy, it would take them only a little over 33 hours. A ship traversing the jump gate network would take months to do the same trip, losing a couple of hours every time they had to cross the system to reach the next gate. The lecturer stopped for a second, trying to check the source of motion that had caught his eye. It was a student, one of the smaller Castian students, holding his arm in the air, a uniquely human gesture. The lecturer humoured him. "Yes?" "These rip drives seem objectively superior to the gate network. Why don't we switch over?" the student asked. "Because they aren't suited to the UL's needs," the lecturer explained. "It's very rare for a ship in the United League to need to travel more than a couple systems. The few ships that do need to, freighters and the like, couldn't get rip drives because the Terrans won't give them up." "Why not?" the student asked. "Because rip drives are an important part of Terran security. Only rip drives can access Sol, as the Terrans continually reject requests and offers to build a gate in their home system. Because of this, should the Terrans ever go to war with the United League, they have the advantage of having an untouchable industrial powerhouse and recruiting centre." "And we allow this?" A different student, a big and burly Palak, asked. "We should punish them for their insolence." "Perhaps," the lecturer began carefully, "but I would remind you that the Terran naval forces are comparable to the United League's navy in size, and Terran warfare technology is superior to the United League." "Regardless," he continued, "the Terrans enjoy their extra layer of security and do not appear to be giving it freely anytime soon. Of course, the Terrans still make use of gate analog devices in their colonies, which they call routers. Routers, which get their name from an old Terran device that broadcasts wireless signals throughout a building, are essentially planet-side, small gates, operated by Terran companies through which signals can be transmitted and received. Terrans use these routers to facilitate real-time communication throughout their empire." Can we not use these to access Sol? The Palak asked. Only if you know a species that can fit through a hole in spacetime smaller than your hand, the professor replied. The holes opened by the routers only need to be big enough to fit electromagnetic waves through, usually waves with 6 to 12 centimeter wavelengths. Did the Terrans not find the 10-hour or more transit time between Sol and their colonies logistically straining? A Kolenskian student near the back of the class asked. I can't speak for them, said the professor, but I imagine not. They're used to it and factored in the weight when they started those colonies. And besides, they still can, and do, make use of the gate network, when it's more convenient to them. But Terran paranoia runs deep. Their history is literally littered with tales of conflict and woe, and they don't believe that just because Terrans have reached the stars, that will change anytime soon. So the UL allows them their defended home system, and in turn the Terrans provide the UL with the insight gained from studying their gate. But what about... A Russian student started to say. I'm afraid that's enough questions for now, the professor said. You all have assigned reading in your textbooks to complete before the end of the session. If you have any burning questions that can't wait until the QA tomorrow, please see me after the session. With a mix of species' unique signs of disappointment, some sighs, some displays of plumage, and one spurt of a sickly green smoke from a Hooklex student in the corner, the class pulled out bound tomes or digital tablets or tactile registers and began their reading.